Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Jordan Elsass. You might recognize me from the show Superman and Lois. You, my friends, are watching Completed It with Andy Burrows. It's your one-stop shop for everything pop culture related. Enjoy the show. I know I sure do.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of Completed It. Yes, this is another episode of Completed It. I'm your host, Andy Burrows. This show can be found on YouTube. Just type in Completed It Pod, one word, and you can find all our content. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Sacha Alari. How are you, sir?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good to have you back. Good to have you back. Now, Sach, when we grew up, there was one thing that played a humongous part in our young lives, and little did I know that we'd be sitting here in 2025 talking about it. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was prominent in the 90s when we were kids, my man. I remember running home from school to watch it. So today we have a great guest joining us, someone that is actually can say he is and was a teenage mutant ninja turtle. He has a great story. Someone that didn't take up martial arts till like the age of 12, all because someone gave him a bulldog at school, I believe. Our guest today is none other than Kenn Scott. And Kenn, I won't try and say your actual surname because I know in your book you said so many people butcher it. So I'll stick with Kenn Scott. Kenn, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you guys having me on here today. I'm glad to be with the Completed It audience and talking to you guys. I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Ken, thanks so much for joining us, my man. Ken, did you think so? For those that don't know, and I guess most people watching this will know, Ken was the guy in the Raphael suit in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. But he is a martial arts guru. This man lived and breathed martial arts growing up. Like I said in my intro, from the age of 12, after getting a bulldog. Am I right, Ken? At school, you were like, I'm not taking any more of this shit. I'm going to learn martial arts.
Yeah, it's true. I was in the seventh grade and I was walking down the hallway in between classes. The hallways were empty, and some little shithead came running out from behind the lockers, man. And I guess he was trying to show off for his little buddy friend who was with him. And out of nowhere, he grabbed me in a headlock and, he did what they call a bulldog. He just ran forward and he took me down to the ground by holding me in a headlock. And yeah, he kind of embarrassed me, hurt me. It was a terrible experience. And I just determined that after that, I never wanted to feel like that again. So just like out of the movies, I went and talked to my parents and I said, I want to take karate. And unlike the movies, they said no. And so I was forced to just, of my own volition, I went to the library. This was back before the internet. And I checked out a book on karate and I opened it up, just like that first scene out of the original Karate Kid when Mr. Miyagi walks in and Ralph Macchio is sitting there doing kicks while Mr. Miyagi's fixing the sink. And he goes, what happened? He goes, oh, I fell off my bike. Well, it was just like that. I was just learning karate from a book. And then after a while, I showed such fortitude that my parents agreed that they would pay the monthly fee, which was very little at the time, to take karate. That was back in 1979, and I've never stopped since.
I believe you spent some time in the emergency room, so much so that they had to call the authorities because they thought you were getting beaten up at home. See, I've read the book.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, you did a great job reading the book. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Yeah, I wasn't in the emergency room because I was getting beat up. I was in the emergency room because I had an adventurous spirit. And I would jump off things, jump over things, fall off things, get hit by things. And I had cast on an arm, cast on a leg, cast on a finger. And it was going on so much so that one time my mom took me to the hospital for a broken arm. And it was at the same time that I had a broken leg. And the doctors were very suspicious that this poor little child of 5 years old kept coming in with all these broken bones. They suspected that I was being abused by my parents. And that was the beginning of a big misunderstanding that fortunately was quashed very quickly. And my parents just had to pay the price for having a very adventurous, spirited son.
I absolutely love it. Ken, did you ever think that we'd be sitting here in 2025 Still talking about a movie that come out on March the 30th, 1990 here in the UK with you doing all the stunt work and everything in the Raphael costume. Did you ever think that we'd still be sitting here on what now is the 5th of March talking about what you've done all them years ago?
Yeah, I I did think in my early life that yes, I might be sitting here doing something like this, but I didn't know that it would be based on Ninja Turtles solely. As it goes in my book, ever since I was a young teenager, I wanted to be an action hero in the movies. I wanted to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Chuck Norris. I wanted to be all that. That was my goal. My brother wanted to be a doctor, and I wanted to be an action hero. And so I envisioned in my life no other reality manifesting for me. I just thought to myself, well, that's what I'm going to do. And so I saw in my future limousines and helicopters and world premieres and interviews and just all that kind of stuff. Now, my life trajectory did not go exactly as I thought it would, like anybody does, but it went a little bit different way with just as much fun and as many dreams coming true. But to sit here 30 years later now, 35 years later, and be talking about this singular Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, no, none of us working on the movie had any idea that it was going to be like this. It's kind of like in today's day and age, saying to somebody, hey, did you know your video was going to go viral?
Mm.
And the answer is no. A viral video by definition, it just catches on and infects people. And so you can try to plan for it, but you don't know it's going to happen. So everybody who makes a movie wants their movie to be big. But when those producers went out on, like you said, March 30th, 1990, and went by the movie theater thinking that they had created, afraid that they had created some kind of flop, some movie that wasn't going to catch on, some movie that was too visually dark to be seen, to be enjoyed, anything. When they saw those lines going around the block, again, it was just like a scene out of a movie. They were like, oh my gosh, look at this. And that started an avalanche that seems to be going on to this day.
Ken, what we mentioned the Turtles movie. Was that added pressure on you guys when you make this movie? Because the reason I ask is because the cartoon was such a success with everyone growing up, and when you that Turtles was one of the first real cartoons to go to live action movie that I can remember from my childhood. Just thinking, look, I love the cartoon. It was great. We all knew, myself and Sasha used to run home from school to make sure we watched it. When you get the call to make a movie like that, that's transitioned from such a popular cartoon, is there any added pressure on you guys to think, shit, we've got to get this right?
Well, I think that's probably a really good question for the producers. Although I would say that at the time, the TV show was popular. It had just been on for a couple of years, but the TV show, which was made by Murakami Wolf, was in essence made simply to be a commercial to sell toys. And that's the whole reason it was created, the first season. But it was such like a success that first season that they went on to make another one. And they had this sort of like underground cottage industry. And it was really kind of bubbling under the surface. Kids were aware of it. Parents were buying some toys, and it was big. You're right. It was growing. But something happened when that movie came out, when it took it from the imaginary animated realm. And all of a sudden, just like the tagline, I don't know what it was in the UK, but the tagline here on the poster was, this is no cartoon, dudes.
Hmm.
And it was this sort of just a subtle picture of the turtles' heads coming up out of a sewer, just barely. And it got so everybody so on edge, like just like you said, it brought a cartoon to life. When the movie did that, when it took it out of that imaginary animated realm and brought it into a visceral, tangible reality, man, that exploded Ninja Turtles. Like it was already a fast burning fuse that was growing, but that movie took it to another level because now you could touch them, you could feel them, you could see the turtles and all that stuff. So I say that because I'm sure the producers knew they had a property that they wanted to do the best with that they could. For them, they were in a unique position because the guys who had the rights to the movie, to the movie rights for the Ninja Turtles, they had shopped it around to every single studio in Hollywood, and every single studio passed. We don't get it. We don't understand it. We don't. And they didn't, and the cartoons were already there. They were already doing something. But at that time, like you said, it was the first time you really saw a cartoon be converted to a movie that really took off. Well, the studios were in the same position as you. So they didn't think that that was really maybe a viable thing to do. So Tom Gray, who was with Golden Harvest Productions, his kids were into the Ninja Turtle cartoons. He's kind of the one that said, hey, maybe we could do something with this. He convinced Golden Harvest, a film company based out of Hong Kong that was most famous for making Bruce Lee's early movies, The Big Boss and Fists of Fury and all that. So they obviously knew martial arts and how to do it. And they had this idea originally that they were going to produce this $2 million schlocky movie with some rubber suits and just some kung fu and just try to exploit this product. But then Tom Gray was kind of like, wait, this could be bigger. He found a partner in Bob Shea, the president of New Line Cinema, who had just had success with the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and they were looking for a new franchise. New Line Cinema brought some more money into the project, so they pulled together a measly, and I say this laughingly, but back at the time, a measly $8 million. And for $8 million, they crafted this thing, and they hoped that, they would find some success with it. And certainly they did. It went on to become the most successful independent film of all time up to that point. Mm-hmm. I think it made like $185 million in domestic box office gross. And then, of course, around the world, it went on and on from there. So the producers were certainly under a certain pressure because they were under $8 million worth of pressure. But for those of us performing in the movie, for me, I didn't necessarily feel the pressure that I had to make this movie a success or I had to live up to the. For me, it was a job, and it was my first professional acting stunt filmmaking job out of college. So it was just like I got the keys to the carnival and I could do whatever I want. There was no pressure whatsoever other than, hey, you better do a good job because you certainly want people to see your work and hopefully you can go on to do more after that.
Wow, amazing. You say it was your first job coming out of college. What did you think when they told you that you've got to do all these stunts in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle costume? You were like, hang on a minute, I've been studying for how long and you want me to do what?
Well, actually, I'll tell you this. It was kind of right up my alley. For those that don't know or haven't had the pure ecstatic pleasure of reading my book, I
recommend it.
I appreciate that. Thanks. It's also available on Audible.
That's how I listened to you for a few days at work, and I had it in my headphones, and I was chuckling away. And even my friend who literally was like, "You're listening to the guy that played the." I was like, "You need to listen to this book," and he's got it now as well.
Oh, great! I love that. I had such a good time recording the book, but ever since I was young, I wanted to be an action hero in the movie, so I did everything possible I could. I took acting classes all through school. I acted in plays. I learned how to ride motorcycles, how to ride horses, jumped out of airplanes, learned how to fence. I was already taking martial arts. I was just doing everything I could to try to manufacture myself into an action hero. Went to school here in the States in North Carolina, got a film degree, and was just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And my plan was that as soon as I graduated college, I was going to move across the states to Hollywood and just start my break, try to find a break into the movie world. Well, lo and behold, fortunately for me, Dino De Laurentiis, the famous film producer, took advantage of some tax incentives in North Carolina and built a movie studio on the East Coast, 3,000 miles away from Hollywood. Well, that movie studio was just a few hours from my house. So I would drive down there and try to figure out how to work as an extra or just anything I could do to watch movies being made, to just be around it somehow. And I ultimately met the people that were in charge of casting the extras or the background performers for the Ninja Turtles. And one of the assignments that those people had was to find local martial artists who could come in and get beat up by the heroes, the Ninja Turtles, essentially to play the foot soldiers, the evil ninjas that work for their nemesis, the Shredder. So I was one of hundreds of people that just showed up at an open audition to do my martial arts for the stunt coordinator. There was no acting involved. It wasn't about being a thespian or anything like that. It was about being the best on-screen martial artist you could be. And fortunately for me, I auditioned for Pat Johnson, he's a very legendary, famous martial artist here in the States, going all the way back to an appearance he had in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. He was the stunt coordinator for the original Karate Kid with Ralph Macchio. In the very final fight scene of that movie, he's the referee between Ralph and William Zabka. So he was the stunt coordinator on Ninja Turtles because they were hoping for Karate Kid-like success. And once I auditioned from him, I got the job. And my job was basically my official title, along with 5 to 15 other guys, depending on what day we were working, was Special Abilities Extra. And that meant they could pay me $75 a day before taxes, and I would spend 14 to 16 hours a day on set doing martial arts, getting beat up. That to me was the greatest thing that had ever happened to me in my life. From the time I was so young, all I wanted to do was be an action hero on screen. And here, my very first professional job out of college was being a ninja in a movie. And so I thought there was no part about it that I didn't love. I thought, this is the greatest thing that could ever happen to me. All my dreams are coming true. It was only the first step in what I knew was going to be a lifelong journey, and it was a step in exactly the right direction. So was I disappointed? No, it was the complete opposite. I was on cloud 9 and couldn't wait to see what happened.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. Last through from me before Satch comes in, Ken. Where do you think the movie industry is now? Like you said, you studied the martial arts and you enjoyed getting paid to be beat up. With the way that movies are now with CGI and everything's a lot of stuff gets imposed, and movies are very different to where they were, say, when the Turtles movie was made in 1990. Are things like what you do still prominent in the film industry today, or has technology taken over a little bit too much?
Well, it's a combination of those things, I think. And I'm sort of on the outside now. I've kind of walked away from being in the film business for a while. Now I travel the world and eat pizza and meet Ninja Turtle fans. But I think there's multiple layers to that question. One is, yes, there is still a need at this juncture, while AI is still in its infancy before it takes over the world and puts us all in pods and sucks the energy out of our bodies. At this particular point, there is still a need for people like, whether it's Andy Serkis, who plays Gollum in, the Lord of the Rings movies. You never see Andy Serkis, but that's his movements, that's his voice, he's bringing that character to life through the filter of a CG computer-generated system. When it comes to martial artists, and doing, whether it's video games or movies, they're still taking people and putting those little ping pong balls all over them and having them do things in order to create realistic movement on camera. In addition, but what's happening though is, as opposed to having that actual martial artist on camera, they're one step removed. It's a guy in a suit with ping pong balls doing a jump spinning kick. But then when you see the movie, it's going to be some kind of space alien ninja with horns and tentacles. And that's what's doing the jump spinning kick. And it's like, okay, John Smith, the actor that was doing that, we don't see him, we don't know him, but he provided the movement, so that the need for talent is still there, but it's kind of getting lost as to who's doing it. I think what's happening now, though, is more and more we're reaching that point where absolutely no human beings are going to be needed in the movie making process. And it started with things like, for me, I think what's different, and I don't want this to sound like sour grapes, it's just kind of the way I see the difference between old Hollywood, what's now old Hollywood, and what's becoming new Hollywood or movie making. When you see a movie like The Avengers, you can see all the characters. You can see Iron Man and Hawkeye and just all the different characters, and they're real people in real costumes doing real things. But then for me, when I see the Hulk come on screen, something in my body knows that that's just a computer generated character. And mind you, it's getting better and better and better where we are unable to tell what we're looking at. And in just, you know, even now, there's times that you can't tell. And over the next few years, you'll never be able to tell. But there's something in this stage right now where, for me, and I think for others, our willing suspension of disbelief doesn't quite go that far. And so if you compare the Ninja Turtle movies that I was in, and we kind of left the story earlier where I was a foot soldier, and a lot of people listening to this who don't know my story may not know that during the movie, the guy that was Raphael got hurt, and I eventually became Raphael in that first movie, and that was kind of it. So when you see the Ninja Turtle movies, originally, it's me and the other guys in costumes, and we're real, we're tangible, we're there. The lights are reflecting off us, we're creating shadows, all this stuff. Cut to several years later when Michael Bay makes some Ninja Turtle movies, and now all of a sudden you've got these computer generated turtles. And you may love the movies, they may be visually impressive, they may be awesome to look at, but there's just something about that. I hesitate to use the word, but that animated computer generated character that doesn't touch your soul in the same sublime way that a real thing does. And some people may not feel that. I know that I do. I know a lot of my friends and fans and people that I talk to do kind of feel that same way. So I think we are in the midst of this shift in the movie industry where it's going from the old days of multi-million dollar productions and sets and casts of thousands to you're going to be able to make any movie you want either in a green room with a couple of actors and AI is going to create the Grand Canyon or the pyramids around them. And then you're not even going to need actors because they're all just going to be photo scanned, voice sampled, and you're just going to program it. For me, what I am looking forward to with this change is the day that I can sit in front of my Roku or my Netflix account or whatever, pick up my remote control and say, you know what? Tonight I'd like to watch a movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Humphrey Bogart and me, and I'd like it to be Total Recall meets Raiders of the Lost Ark. Go. And then when I hit enter, it's going to buffer for 30 seconds, and then for the next 2 hours, I'm going to watch an awesome movie starring those characters with that makeup. And that's what's coming next.
I completely agree. Satch, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, so turtle. Well, I've only got one turtle question, really. There's a lot of unknown. Well, there are a lot of celebrities that are in that film before they were famous, such as Sam Rockwell and Street Urich. You know what? I didn't even notice Sam Rockwell was in that movie until about 2 years ago when I rewatched it. I was like, bloody hell.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was an amazing start for a lot of people in different ways. It was an amazing start for Sam Rockwell. I love saying that I'm in a movie with Sam Rockwell. I don't know if you guys know that game 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever it is.
Yep, I know it well.
Yeah, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Well, just by being in the Ninja Turtle movie with so many people that are in there, including Sam Rockwell, including David Warner, who was in the second movie, Secret of the Ooze, playing Professor Perry, Brian Tochi, who was the voice of Leonardo. Simply by being in Ninja Turtles, we can play that 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, but with Ninja Turtles and get to almost anybody in just 2 or 3 degrees. So Ninja Turtles got Kevin Bacon beat hands down. But yeah, it was really awesome. Judith Hogue, who played April O'Neil and went on to great success in the show Halloween Town and that stuff. That was kind of her launch, along with a part in Cadillac Man.
I think I've done it.
I'm sorry?
I think I've done it. So we've got you, Turtles with Sam Rockwell, who was in Iron Man 2, right? Mm-hmm. Sam Rockwell, Iron Man 2, Stan Lee. I'm cheating now because I'm using Stan Lee. But Stan Lee, give me a sec. Stan Lee, oh, fuck. I almost had it. It's the wrong X-Men. X-Men and their timelines. Oh, man. almost had it. I was
Who are
You've
you
got-
trying to get to? Kevin
because I was
Bacon?
thinking Kevin Bacon was in X-Men First Class, right? So he's in the X-Men film, but if I don't recall Stan Lee being in that one. I know he's in all the normal Marvel MCU films, and I know he's in the later X-Men films like 1, 2, and 3. But was he in First Class? If he's in First Class, I've
You've
done
done
it.
it. Yeah. If he
But
isn't,
but if he isn't, but now I've got to think. Oh wait, no, wait, I'm cheating now.
Yeah.
So Stan Lee, X-Men 1, Professor X is in Patrick Stewart. Days of Future Past with McAvoy. McAvoy. There we go. Was that
He's
7
done
movies?
it.
I did it. I did it. I got there.
There you go.
We got there.
And
I'm
I
not.
had to. The minute you said 7
Yeah.
degrees, my mind just went. I was like, I'm doing
I'm
it.
not going to do it now, but I bet you I can get to him in a lot less degrees than that.
Probably.
Challenge
Probably.
accepted. Challenge. Anything else, Satch, mate?
Yeah, so looking at your filmography, you've worked with quite a few people. I mean, like Sworn to Justice, Cynthia Rothrock, man.
Oh,
That
yeah,
must have been something. You being a martial arts fan, she's like the queen of like Western martial arts, let's be fair. What
Oh,
was
yeah.
that experience like working on that? And you had Brad Dourif on that film.
Oh man, that
Yeah.
movie alone was packed with people. That movie, Sworn to Justice, had Walter Koenig from the original Star Trek in it.
Yeah.
It had Mako in it from Conan the Barbarian and a million other things. It had Brad Dourif, on and on. But it had Kurt McKinney, star of No Retreat, No Surrender. He was in it. And then it had now the name escapes me, from the French Connection, the guy that played the main bad guy. Well, anyway, yes, I played the bad guy. I was like the Darth Vader in Sworn to Justice. I was like the main bad guy's henchman. And
So
it
did
was
you get
awesome.
so did you get a fight scene with her?
Oh yeah, I thought. Well,
Oh, that's
yes.
amazing.
As a matter of fact, besides Jackie Chan or somebody else, I believe I'm one of the only people that actually gets to hit Cynthia Rothrock on
Wow.
screen.
Wow.
She and I had a very brief moment where we fought before it was stopped. Oh, Tony LoBianco. That's the actor I was thinking of from French Connection. So in Sworn to Justice, I'm beating up a lot of other people, but then Cynthia shows up in my headquarters and I pull out a pair of nunchucks. She pulls out a pair of Eskrima sticks and we fight for 30 seconds or a minute or something like that. And I hit her one good time. And just as she's about to come back, somebody stops the fight, shoots a gun off, and it becomes a whole other conversation. And then my whole big final fight is with Kurt McKinney in the end.
Right.
But working with Cynthia was awesome. Just to be there with her. She's such a sweetheart. I just saw her at another Comic-Con recently in New Jersey, and it was like it's like we've always been friends. She's so sweet and so down to earth. And she just came out with her own movie, Black Creek, with a bunch of other famous martial artists: Don Wilson, Keith Cook, I believe Richard Norton's in it. So yeah, it was incredible. It was very much an honor because I didn't just know Cynthia from movies. I grew up in the martial arts world, so I've been watching Cynthia compete since she was 16 years old, and now we're both older, so it's been a long road. But to get to be on the screen with her was just phenomenal.
So, like, coming from an acting background and stuff, with yourself, I see that you progressed into second unit directing. But before we get to that, you had the balls to make your own film, and anyone that does that has giant balls in my book. I love filmmaking. I do short films myself, but only YouTube films. I haven't taken the leap to feature. But what was that like? I mean, the adventures of Johnny Tao. Was it Johnny Tao?
It's called The Adventures of Johnny Dow. I believe in the UK, it's probably called Quest of the Dragon, unless they change it to something else. But man, it was phenomenal. That was my first film. It was the only feature film I ended up directing, but I wrote it and directed it. And there are parts of it that are fabulous, and there are parts of it that are terrible. But it was my first film. I was learning. Had I not moved on and done other things, I'm sure my second film would have been phenomenal, and then third and fourth, and so on from there. But yeah, I raised some money, wrote a script, and made my own martial arts film.
So on your directing journey, I saw you did 2 short films before that. Were they influential in getting the foot in the door to be able to direct your feature, or was your feature very independent where you raised the cash to do it, or did you get a studio or backers to fund you?
No,
Or,
no.
no.
To answer your question, yes, I made some short martial arts based films. And when I say short, one of them was a 15-minute film about a pizza delivery guy that kicks ass. I believe you can find it, although it's a really crappy copy because you're talking it was made in 1999. The resolution is not that great. It's on YouTube in 2 parts. If you look up Kenn Scott, and the name of the movie is Better Never Than Late. And if you can find Better Never Than Late, you'll see my award-winning short film. Again, it's in 2 parts. Yes, making that short film and then a couple other little fight scenes that I filmed allowed me to show to investors that I knew what to do. I knew how to set up shots. I knew how to make a movie. I knew I could produce martial arts content. And then as long as I had a script that people believed in and liked, and I was able to put the resources together, that showed them that I was more than just talk. I was actually walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So if there's any filmmakers or anything, listening, don't be sitting around waiting to tell people how great your idea is and waiting for them to give you money. Go out and make stuff. The more stuff you make, the better you're going to be. Just like my first film. If I had gone on to make more and more films, they would have gotten better and better and better. Make your short films. Get all your mistakes out of the way. Show people that you know what you're doing. Show people that you can produce high quality stuff. And then all you got to do is show them that you have a good idea. And you say, look, I got a good idea. I know how to execute stuff. I've proven it. And then they just got to take the leap of faith. But like so many filmmakers that I've run into throughout my life, they think, oh, I've just got this really great idea. Let me tell people about it. And it's like, who the hell is going to invest in that? If you've never built a house, I'm not going to give you money to build my house. Show me 5 other houses that you built, and then I'll say, oh, you do a good job. So yes, those definitely led me to the path of raising private equity to go out and make a movie. And the movie sold all around the world. It sold. It was very successful. It sold in 40 territories around the world. It was very successful domestically. Sold 33,000 DVD units in the States. So it did well.
I do believe James Hong is in that. Oh, Lo Pan from Big Trouble in Little China.
One of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you guys.
Like
That's
to
one of my
direct
favorite
him?
films. Yeah.
Because he's one of those actors that just always pops up and stuff.
No, that is one of my favorite films. Kenn, just briefly before we get out of here, my friend, I know our time is precious. Me and Sash talk about reboots all the time on why we do this. If they ever rebooted the Turtles, they like you said earlier, when they've done it again, but it's not what I call the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, there's talk. Jonathan Noakes, a good friend of ours, sent in a question. He was saying that the next Turtle movie is allegedly going to be Michelangelo on his own because in the comic books they killed them all off. Are reboots in films something that you enjoy or something that you don't like? And would you like to see the Turtles reboot?
If the Turtles got rebooted, I don't really see any part that I would have in it. There's no cause for costume performers. And if they did need a costume performer, they're not going to bring in a 58-year-old dude to go in there. I'd have a heart attack if I had to wear one of those suits. That's the most physically challenging thing I've ever done in my life, put on a Ninja Turtle suit. And again, there's a lot of people that are probably listening to us that may just know the movies and things like that. And, if you want to know more, and I'm not trying to sell you a book, I don't care, but go to turtleconfessions.com or go to Amazon and find my book, Teenage Ninja the Mutant Turtle. And if you can find it, it's chock full of behind the scenes stories of what went into making these movies. And it's stories people don't know about. It's
nearly getting hit by a train.
Yeah. It's about me almost getting hit by a train, getting hit by a taxi cab, people throwing up in their turtle suits. I mean, there's all kinds of craziness that went on. So if they were going to reboot something right now, certainly would I love it if somebody found little old me and said, hey, Kenn, we'd love for you to be a part of this. Of course I would. But to be realistic, I don't really know what I could contribute other than this handsome face and this awesome, tone of voice. But sure, but the big question is, would I love to see a Turtles reboot? I guess in some ways we already have, because they've continued to make turtle products. They've made both animated movies. They've made these CGI related movies. They're talking about a live action Last Ronin movie right now. And for me and all my colleagues in the Ninja Turtle world, it doesn't matter if we're in the movie or not. I mean, of course, we'd love to be, but if you're not, it's okay, because anything that comes out with turtles fills the turtle canon and increases the turtle energy and message around the world. And I kind of laugh about this, but I always tell my friends and stuff, I go, it's good anytime something Ninja Turtles comes out, because when people see it, they turn to their friend on the couch and they go, you know, I met Raphael once. And so all of a sudden, there's all this energy, this good juju in the world, because everybody's talking about me or the other turtles they've met or the things like that. And, you know, in certain spiritualities and certain religions, they don't necessarily think that you live on in the afterlife. They say you live on in the memory and observance from others. And so as long as there are people out there in the world thinking, talking, and celebrating turtles, I feel alive. So I love it, with no matter what they come out with.
There isn't a person that I haven't been near today that I haven't told that I'm interviewing a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And a lot of them have gone, Andy, have you been drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning? I'm like, no. And then I told them what I'm doing, and they were like, wow, that's incredible. Kenn, last one though. Do you think it's very easy now when making movies just to rehash what's been done in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s? I got this question the other day. I was chatting to somebody about movies, and they were like, and my wife mentions it to me a few times as well. They're like, it's very easy now just to go, do you know what? We'll do Jurassic Park again. We'll bring Star Wars back. We'll make another Star Wars movie. We'll keep churning out this. It seems very easy now just to get something that's been done, rehash it, use the name, and put it out there. Is that where filmmaking is going nowadays?
Well, you know, from a outside pop culture sort of experience, I think it is what happens. Certainly, there's some original creative entertainment coming out all the time. So even now, there's a lot of great films that'll come out and you go, wow, look at that. That's amazing, or inventive, or wonderful, or creative, or whatever it is. So there's always new art happening. But there is sort of a tragedy to the loss of the old school studio system and what it was, even before my days. Back in the days when the entrepreneurs who started Warner Brothers and MGM and Paramount, and they had actors under contract and writers under contract and all this stuff, they weren't worried about corporate branding or, you know, television competing with streaming and all these stuff. They could afford to invest in quality writers and quality creators, and they took time to take actors and train them, and they built up these wonderful sort of almost theatrical companies that produced great entertainment. And that, of course, the studio system died after a while. And as you got into the 60s and 70s and the auteur cinema and independent cinema and artists started to come up, you got a real infusion of art. I mean, when you look at Francis Ford Coppola and Steven Spielberg when he was young and doing his things, and Joe Dante, and just, I mean, on and on, you can name so many of them. When you look at the filmmakers of that time that were creating inspired pieces, whether it was from politics or culture or whatever it was, there were statements being made by art. And that was something that was happening. Now what happens is, outside of the fact that we still have some creative people doing some great work, you have a lot of corporations that own everything. Everything's run by people, actuaries who are looking at what's going to make money, how's this going to balance out, where are we going to make money, what are foreign sales. And so you're right, they're taking old products and they're polishing them up and rebooting them. But what they're doing is they're losing all the heart. They're losing all the feeling and all the purposeness of those original pieces. If you go, I'll give you just a couple of examples. Here's a silly example. You could go back to Roger Corman, the early independent rogue and Ronin of cinema. And he was making, I mean, low budget films, but there were films that had a perspective and a statement, and there was underlying themes to them. It wasn't just always schlock and gore and tits and whatever. You look at Bucket of Blood or Little Shop of Horrors, and there was perspective to these movies. Just the other day, I watched the original Death Race 2000 with David Carradine, right? Yeah. I mean, if you watch that now, people are like, oh, it's so silly, it looks so corny. It wasn't. But watch it now and think about what it's saying about government and mind control and all this stuff that we're experiencing even today.
Sounds familiar.
Especially here in the States. But now, what they did is, just a couple of years ago, they took that movie and they remade it with Jason Statham, and they made Death Race. And all of a sudden, none of that perspective is in the movie. It's basically Fast and the Furious. It's fast cars and sexy people, and they're just saying, hey, I think I'm going to go over here and drive real fast. And it's nothing. It's 2 hours of just eye candy, and there's nothing there. Look at the original RoboCop and what Paul Verhoeven did in RoboCop or Total Recall. These movies had character, perspective, feeling. There was something in them. Cut to years later, they made RoboCop. They remade Total Recall. These are passionless movies that just have a lot of spotlight and shine and all this. They have none of the heart, at least in my opinion.
I agree.
None of the feel of those original movies. So that's a long way to say, yes, I think what's happening is people are dusting off old titles. They're going, hey, let's just remake this. Let's remake this, because they know they will get sales. They know they'll get a deal on Netflix. They know they'll stream it somewhere. They'll sell it all around the world. And they couldn't give two shits about talking about political oppression or economic issues or cultural issues or anything. It's just about how fast and how loud can we make something.
I agree. What a perfect way to end. Kenn, it's been amazing to have you on our show, my friend. If I could go back and tell 10-year-old Andy Burrows that he'd be sitting here chatting to the guy that was in the original Turtles movie, he'd probably say, what the hell? And it's been an incredible experience. Kenn, just finishing up, my friend, where can people find you if they wanted to interact with you? What are you up to these days? Please tell me you're going to be over in the UK coming to a Comic-Con so that the UK fans can see you. But what are you up to nowadays, Kenn?
Man, I'd love that. I'd love to come to the UK. So for anybody that's out there that's over in the UK, reach out to your local Comic-Cons and let them know we want Kenn Scott, but you can even say we want the Turtle Celebration. And if you go online, you look up Turtle Celebration, that's me and the other cast members, and we travel to Comic-Cons. We're getting ready to go to Australia. We've been to Belgium. We've been to a lot of places, so we'd love to come to the UK. But you can find me online on Instagram myself. I'm at Kenjitsu, and that's Kenn with two N's, Kenjitsu. But you can also go straight to the website, turtleconfessions.com, and that'll take you to a place that mostly talks about my book, but at least it's a way to find me, get in contact with me. I'm also on Facebook as Kenn Scott-Raphael, but I think that's where all us old people hang out. So I'm trying to be more Instagram relevant at Kenjitsu, which I'm thinking, I think it might be changing to Kenn Scott Official. I'm not sure. I got to see.
I like exclusive here on Completed It.
Yeah, that may be happening in the next couple of weeks. Kenjitsu might become Kenn Scott Official. But turtleconfessions.com, check out the book, Kenjitsu on Instagram. Follow me, I follow back. I'm active on social media. When I go to cons, I love to share photos at the cons of fans. And a lot of people may not know this, but in the first movie, I'm the fellow chucker that does the nunchucks against Michelangelo in the fight scene. And so at the Comic-Cons, I have people come up to my table and I bring a set of nunchucks and we do the nunchuck challenge.
That specific scene was cut from the UK version.
Oh yeah, yes.
We did not get that. Well, we do on DVD and Blu-ray.
On Blu-ray, yeah, I've got the Blu-ray.
But growing up, we had no clue that existed until the 2000s.
So yeah, find me on social media. So when you ask me what I'm doing now, literally my whole life right now is I practice martial arts I eat pizza, I take care of my animals, and I travel the world meeting Ninja Turtle fans, and I absolutely love it. And I'm
Oh,
writing
no.
I'm writing a second book.
Well, anyone wants, I recommend the first book, Teenage Ninja to a Mutant Turtle. I absolutely loved it. It's on Audible now, so it's a lot. I find I love the Audibles. It's just my headphones in. I'm at work. I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and it's in my ears. Anyone that wants to check us out, just go to YouTube, type in Completed It Pod, one word, into YouTube. Type us in. You'll see the little logo come on. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like, hit the bell, all that good jargon that I'm meant to say. But Kenn, thanks so much, my friend. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on our show, my man. I do hope to see you over here in the UK. I'll make sure that I venture out to come and see you. But it's been an absolute honor to have you on our show, my friend. Keep doing what you're doing.
It's an honor for me too. Thanks a lot, guys. And thanks to everybody out there listening and watching.
No problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next week with another Completed It. We have just announced some very special guests. Check us out on X at Completed It Pod. But till next time, everybody, stay safe.